Hi, and welcome to Mr. Block Explains the Congress of Vienna. So where we're to look at Europe here, we just covered the Industrial Revolution. We're actually going to go back to Napoleon's reign. Remember, Napoleon took power right around the time about 1800, 1799. After the end of the French Revolution, he brings stability to France. He begins to create a dominant empire. He tries to invade most of Europe in order to keep away from other European monarchs from coming back and trying to restore the French monarchy and take back the throne. And he does a lot of damage within Europe, for good and bad. Definitely something to that we've examined earlier within our unit, within our work. But however, though, this is going to take a look at what happens after Napoleon, because after he invades Russia, very quickly, he starts to lose a lot of his power, his influence, and the other European powers start to work together to go against him and eventually succeed after he gets exiled for the second time and gets defeated. So, however, though, so what happens after the Napoleon gets exiled again, because Europe has a dilemma on their hands. The monarchs in the surrounding countries, mostly Austria, England, Prussia, which is modern day Germany, and then Russia, they get together as the Big Four, and they meet at the Congress of Vienna in Austria to decide what are we going to do about France, how we're going to make sure that no one leader can ever take part and basically dominate Europe again. The other thing that they want to do is they want to make sure that they want to erase all traces of the French Revolution. And this is a really big deal, to get rid of the ideas that happened in the French Revolution, to get rid of the traces of Napoleon's rule, essentially because these were monarchs who were much more conservative. They wanted to have a monarchy in power. They wanted to have a tradition that they've kept going on for centuries and centuries. That they liked absolute monarchy. They didn't want democracy. They didn't want a lot of the enlightenment ideas that came out of the French Revolution to start spreading across Europe. So they wanted to kind of keep it contained and then to make sure that France couldn't become a big dominant power again. Now, the first thing they did is they mostly blamed it on the French for all the problems that were happening in Europe, mostly because of the revolution and also due to Napoleon's reign and him causing all the wars and invading other countries and expanding basically French territory all across Europe. And so France and Napoleon were blamed for a lot of the issues that happened in Europe. And then the Big Four got together and basically said that, you know what, you are going to give back the territory that Napoleon had taken. They divvied it up amongst themselves and tried to restore a lot of the old boundaries that had happened back then before Napoleon actually came to power and started to expand French territory. So the countries are giving back territory, and what this did is this created a balance of power. And so what the balance of power essentially is a way for no European country could overwhelm the others like France did. So they're always checking each other. The idea is that if we put a monarch in France, just like the old monarchs. So they actually reinstalled the brother of King Louis the 16th. So his name is King Louis the 18th. So King Louis the 18th comes to power in France as a absolute monarch in a way. And then you have Russia. And essentially they're going to check each other because they're both pretty powerful. And then you have in the middle ground here, Austria and Prussia and the German Confederation and Italy. They're essentially going to kind of be as a check for the both of them geographically, because the Congress was going to work more together to make sure that not one country was way too strong and could absolutely overpower the others. It was incredibly well done, mostly by Clemens von Metternich, who was one of the main Austrian diplomat inside of this in this Congress. And so they redrew the map of Europe, which this is what it looked like. And this was all the territory that Napoleon and the French had at the height of the empire in 1812, when Napoleon was basically, getting really close to taking Russia. And it got drawn up into this. You have a much looser German Confederation. You have, Austria asserts itself as a power. Russia gets a little bit more land. France loses a little bit, but they're able to still keep their old boundaries, not to upset the French with making newer boundaries and taking a lot of land that they initially had. So this is restoring the old monarch boundaries. This is restoring the old monarchs into power and making sure that democracy is being squashed, and all these enlightenment and revolutionary ideas are not going to take place because everyone's going to work together like a concert. They call this the concert of Europe, to make sure that everyone's playing a different part, but it's all humming at the same tune, much like you might have different sections of an orchestra, like woodwinds and brass and percussion and such, all being basically conducted together to sound harmoniously. And Clemens von Metternich was that conductor. So the big impact of the Congress of Vienna, number one, it restored the legitimacy of former rulers to their thrones, and it redrew the boundaries of Europe to their old boundaries. Number two, it restored a balance of power, like I just said, to make sure that not a single ruler could become too powerful over time, and to make sure that all these alliances are checking each other in a way to make sure that there's a reason why Russia is not going to go in and try to invade France, and France is not going to go in and try to invade Germany or Prussia or go up to England. It's going to restore some sort of peace and to prevent another Napoleon coming into the fray. And this is actually pretty successful for quite a while, up until basically the rise of Germany with Otto von Bismarck back in 1870s. And then the other thing is that what they did was they abolished the slave trade in Europe. Now slavery is still happening within their colonies within the United States, but Europe itself doesn't trade in slaves. So that's a bit of a step in the right direction. And then also that they created an organization that would use peace to prevent international war, and it was fairly successful for about for a number of decades. This Congress of Vienna actually held peace throughout most of Europe, up until about the 1870s, more or less, which allowed for the Industrial Revolution to kind of play a bigger role, bigger impact. And countries started to progress actually pretty well within their monarchies. Was it perfect? No, but it actually did hold peace for quite a while, and we're going to talk about how this started to break down later. Hope that explains a lot. Good luck on your guided notes, and I'll see you guys around. All right, bye.